Today we're going to be looking at Lime Crime in the color Butterscotch. So you may notice that my swatches are labeled 1 through 12. I just like to remind everyone that the numbers are not synonymous with hair levels. I just do different video clips and pictures and such throughout the video, so the numbers just help us keep track of each swatch. These are human hair swatches, but they are not virgin hair. So they've been chemically colored, bleached, or treated at some point in their existences. 1 is pink, 2 is a gray, 3 is a natural red, 4 is a soft black, and then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So to start, I'm going to take the color directly from the container and I will apply it to the top of each swatch. Some people do like to dilute their dye, so I'll do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take a color differently. Plus, different screens and monitors can make colors look different, so please just use my video as a reference for how this could possibly turn out for you. For the diluted section, we're going to do a 4:1 ratio. So that's going to be 1 part of the dye to 4 parts diluter. I do get questions about what diluter is, so the simple answer that I like to give is that it's basically something that lightens the color of a semi-permanent dye. Each brand usually does sell their own version of a diluter, which can be really nice because it'll keep the same consistency as your semi-permanent dye. But to keep things consistent on my channel for each dye, I actually just use a plain white conditioner as my diluter. I'm gonna let these sit for about 3-ish hours. I will then rinse them out, and when they're dry, I'll meet you back here and we can do some comparisons. So this color does seem to be pretty pigmented, but I started giving a little warning before we get into the video, just so everyone is on the same page. I just want to remind everyone that my swatches are not virgin hair, which means they're going to be more porous than hair that's never been treated before, which means they will take color better. On my swatches, this did take on even the like medium darkish brown, but if you have virgin hair, I can't really say if this would take on you or not, because virgin hair just tends to struggle to take semi-permanent because it's not as porous as treated hair. So definitely always do a bunch of research and strand testing if you do decide to get the color. And of course, anyone else's experiences in the comments is always helpful too. So I would say that this is kind of close to a natural red. I think it leans a little bit more red than a natural red would, but it's still really close to a natural. So I feel comfortable saying it's basically like a natural red almost. So number 1 was pink. The top definitely took very well. The bottom, on the other hand, I still see some pink coming through, so you probably wouldn't want to dilute it as much as I did. 2 was the gray. I would say that's probably actually the most natural swatch out of all of them because it muted down the color a little bit. So it's not quite, not that these are bright, but these definitely look a little bit more saturated than the number 2 does. It almost has a bit of like an auburn look on the top. And then on the diluted section, it did take, it just looks a little dusty, I guess. I think the warm undertones in the rest of the swatches really help to give the color its color, whereas since there's no like warmth from the hair in the number 2, it has some warmth still, it just looks almost like a gray. I don't know how to describe it. It's very interesting. I think personally I'd also recommend probably not diluting it as much as I did for gray. That just depends on the outcome that you're looking for. 3 was the natural red. Now it's kind of hard to say whether or not it did anything on the diluted section because this is a natural red, so it's hard to tell, but it definitely took on the top. And you can see that this, even though I would say it's kind of close to a like natural red, it still was darker than my natural red swatch. I do not see a difference on number 4. So I feel like 5 and maybe 6 do look pretty brown, but the red undertone really still comes through. It is a little hard to say whether or not I would consider it to be like a red on someone's hair. I have heard that red is one of those colors that doesn't stay in the hair very long, so there is a chance, especially on the darker swatches, that a color like this wouldn't keep the red undertones for too long. I think if you're going for that, you're probably better off having your hair a little bit lighter, but it did darken the number 5 from what it was before. Now I don't think I see a difference on the diluted section. It looks close to what it was before. There might be a slight undertone difference, but from what I can tell, it looks about the same. I give about the same critique for number 6. It just doesn't look as dark on number 6 as it does for number 5, but everything I said still basically applies. I would say 7 and 8, maybe 9, all kind of look similar on the top, so the dye took about the same on these. It's a little bit darker on the 7, 8, and 9 versus how it looks on the number 11, but overall still kind of like an auburn color. I think I see a undertone difference on the diluted section, but it's very minimal. I see it a little better on 8 and especially 9, but because it almost is a natural color, it's probably a little bit hard to tell until you see the before and after. I think if I diluted this a little bit less, it would actually look a lot like a true natural red, kind of like my number 3 swatch. And then I think for the direct dye portion, 10 and 11 aren't too far off either. So realistically, while I don't know if virgin hair is the best option for this dye, if you are trying to bleach your hair for this, I don't think you need to make it super platinum to get a nice result, which is always nice and easier for a lot of people. Unless you're going for a specific look with the diluted section, because the 11 diluted section does look lighter than the 10, even though the undertones are obviously very similar. And then 11 was our tone swatch. That one usually falls kind of between 11 and 2, and I would say that's about the same. It looks a little bit more smoky than number 11, but not quite as muted as number 2. I still see a little bit more saturation in comparison, but definitely less red in here than like the number 11 swatch. So as for comparisons, Lime Crime actually has another color that is kind of like, maybe not a natural red, but not a super bright red. And I thought we would compare that today since it's kind of in a similar color family. So this is comparable to number 12, number 11, and number 10. So I used to do my numbering system a little different before, earlier on in my channel, because of the amount of swatches I had. And I also used to do 2 separate diluted parts. So this is diluted and then this is diluted again. So right here is going to be the direct dye portion. Hopefully you can see what I mean when I say that the caramel is not quite a natural red, but like kind of is a natural red. It has the same idea as Butterscotch, where it's like, I think they're a little too saturated to be considered natural reds. Like if you were to look at someone who has natural red hair and then you compare these to their hair, I think these would look a little bit too saturated in comparison. But then when you think about other semi-permanent dyes, like there are definitely brighter reds out there. I think it's pretty obvious, but the Butterscotch is much darker in comparison. Caramel does lean a little bit lighter, and then the caramel definitely leans much more orangey red in comparison. It still has a close to natural look, but Butterscotch looks much more brownish red, and caramel looks, again, more like reddish red, but natural. The second comparison I wanted to look at is Manic Panic in the color Cobra. So this is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and a 9. So Manic Panic came out with a line of natural brown dye, and I noticed that their lightest color was close to a natural red, and after diluting them all, I kind of saw a pattern that it kind of looked like they took the lightest color and then just made it darker and darker and darker for each bottle. They got less and less red the darker they got. They still had a slightly warmish kind of red undertone. But this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before with the natural reds, where it's like if you look at someone with natural red hair and then you compare something like the Butterscotch, I think the Butterscotch would look way too red next to their hair. And I personally see a lot of red in the Cobra, but now when you see them together, the Cobra looks way more brown and a lot less auburn compared to the Butterscotch. And what I said earlier still applies. I probably should have said this in my Manic Panic videos, but because red is one of those colors that doesn't really stay in the hair too long, as far as I'm aware, the Cobra, it might have a slightly more reddish undertone on your hair at first, but it could wash out really fast and stay more brown. Same as the Butterscotch. So if you want something that looks a lot more red, but still natural, I think the Butterscotch would be really good. The Manic Panic browns, like I said, they all kind of look red to me, but it's a lot more natural. So if you're just looking for a very warmish undertone brown, the Manic Panic would be a better option there. All right, so now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those, as well as everything past this point in the video, will all be done in natural lighting. I hope my video helped. If you have requests, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so very, very much to my patrons, and thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.